He's the one and only, the great and powerful former Mariner, Yankee, Ranger, and White Sox relief pitcher. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on Job on the Mouth, let's give him a golf clap, Jeff Nelson.
I'm sorry it's taken so long. And
Hey,
also,
Nelly, is that a nice red you got working right there?
It is. It is because I've been waiting. I listened to everything you said before I came on, and I want to make some clarity about things. If anyone on this show had $100 million, they would not be doing this right now.
You're probably right.
Well, they're going to pay us $100 million to do it, and then we ain't got to worry about it.
That's true.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we'll be rich.
And that, it's funny because actually, I have always respected what Joba has done through his career, and I don't really know if I always came out to Old Timers Day, and then you guys stayed in the clubhouse. I don't even know if I ever met you as a Yankee. I always respected you as what you did.
I got you once.
Once, okay.
Yep, I got you once.
I always loved what you did.
Because I never realized how big you really were. And I was
dude, you're massive.
I was like, oh shit, Nelly's big.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I mean, because as a baseball fan, I was like, all right. And I seen what you did, and I'm like, that's why I had to wear this shirt today. You have to.
Exactly.
You got to. You have a guy like your stature on this show. With what we've done, like, we're special individuals. We know that. And I was like, I remember at Old Timers Day, there's so many things about Old Timers Day, and I hope they bring it back at some point. I really do. But it's like Whitey Ford drinking a Bud Heavy, like literally not caring.
Yeah.
He's like, me and Yogi need to go sit on the couch, and I need my Bud Heavies. And then, you just have so many guys. And I remember just watching you, and obviously I was a Braves fan growing up. So that you really kind of crushed my dreams a little bit.
Now, John, did you play in the old stadium?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you were there, when they had Old Timers Day, I don't remember, because when I was there and they had Old Timers Day, the Old Timers used to dress in our clubhouse.
Yep.
So Steinbrenner used to make everyone dress in our clubhouse.
Yep, they all did.
Okay. When was your last year?
My last year was, I went to spring training in 2017.
Okay. So my first year at the old stadium for Old Timers was like 2008 or whatever. So
Jeff, we missed.
So that would have been my second. That would have been my second year, but my first Old Timers Day was 2008.
Okay.
Our last year. Yep.
Jeff, we missed that
last year at the stadium.
We missed that do. We missed that Joe Dirt do that you had over there in Seattle.
Joe Dirte.
Yes.
I only had the mullet 1 year, and that was like 93 when it was like business on top and the party in back. So that was only 1 year. I had an earring. I don't know what the hell it was.
You were in Seattle.
Yes, exactly. It was in New York.
Is there some
truth? You have some characters there, though.
Yeah.
Is it some truth that you have a nipple ring? I don't know. I mean, somebody told me that you might have.
I do. I did have a teammate that had a nipple ring, and that might have been David Justice that had 2 nipple rings. So, and he was actually, it's so funny, and I know Job has been involved in this as well, is that you play against guys that you wonder, I mean, you love to be teammates with them, and then all of a sudden they kind of rub you the wrong way. And like Justice was one of those guys that he never talked to the opposing team. He was like, oh, this guy's a real, a whatever. And he came over to us in 2000, and he was an unbelievable teammate, one of my best teammates that I've ever had. And, those type of guys that you look on the other side, you said, this guy I can't stand, winds up being some of your best teammates if they wind up being on your team.
The only thing I loved about David Justice was he was married to Halle Berry. That's the only thing I liked about David
Didn't
Justice.
Something happen with their house burning down, or she burned the house down or something? I don't know.
Didn't she have a tattoo of his name too, or
Yes.
something?
Yes,
I'm
but she
sure.
got it
They had
removed.
to
Yes.
And the best part of it is they had to laser that off, because lasering a tattoo off is not fun.
No, it isn't. I mean, getting David Justice on your body is probably something that would be wrong too. But anyways, we are talking to former New York Yankee. He's won multiple championships with the New York Yankees. Was a big part of their bullpen. I remember in '96 and '97 and '98. You've been a long resting New York Yankee. So I have a question for you. And you look at what the Yankees have done over the years, and the Yankees haven't won a championship. What now? It's going on 15 years. It's been a long, long time. It's been a long way. It's actually going on 16 years. Why have the Yankees failed to get over the hump from all those Yankee championships that we saw in the 90s on the teams that you were on, and even in the mid 2000s when the Yankees were practically always in the World Series? Why have the Yankees had so many problems getting over the hump?
Well, I think a lot of it is, when Joba was going through the minor league system, and before I came over as a manager, Mr. Steinbrenner, the dad, George, they developed minor league players, and basically it was minor league players that you were going to go to the big leagues, and it wasn't always with the Yankees. Most likely, you were getting traded for someone, and that's what happened back in the day. I think once the boss passed away, I think it became more of a business and more about, hey, not that they didn't want to have a championship, not that they didn't want to win a World Series. It was about, okay, how do we structure this team and structure this organization about trying to compete? Because you look, I mean, what was it, 30 straight years that they had an over 500 record, and 28 of those 30 years they made the playoffs, or 29 they made the playoffs, so they were always in it. Um, it just got to the point that they could not get over the hump, and I think it was just they were missing pieces. When the boss was there, Mr. Steinbrenner, George Steinbrenner, there wasn't any pieces missing. There was great players, there was great teams on other organizations, but we didn't miss a piece. We didn't miss what we needed to get over the hump. And I think when you go and you look at the '09 team, they had a great team, but going forward, they were always missing something, whether it was injuries or adding that player or adding that right player, whether it was bad contracts trying to sign or trying to make that trade during July. They were always coming up short when other teams weren't. And I think in New York, sometimes the fans or even the organization got a little complacent when you win so many times. The expectation level, you almost expect, okay, hey, we're getting to the playoffs, and all we have to do is get in, and anything can happen. But a lot of times, yeah, anything can happen, and a lot of times you got beat, and you weren't always the Yankees of the past. And I think they got too complacent. I think they got not cocky, but too confident in a sport that in any sport you just can't get too confident.
Humbles you quick.
Yeah, it does, Nelly, and you've gone obviously back and forth a little bit with your tenure with the Yankees and the Mariners, obviously. But when you talk about like developing guys, and you see like the core four, and then in '09 you had guys like Brett Gardner and myself and Phil Hughes and those guys. And I love the point that you made, because now you guys were so good for so long, and you guys weren't getting, like the number one guy in college or high school. Like you were having to develop these guys and getting decent, college guys and late first round, early second round guys and that nature. Like where do you think, like when it comes to that, of like the winning culture of developing those guys, and how important that is of having that young energy? Because I remember when nobody knew who the hell I was, because I was only in the minor leagues for 2.5 months, and then I was in the big leagues, and things changed. But as a baseball fan, and knowing what the history of that was, and how the minor leagues work, and how it comes, what did you think of these young guys sparking energy that came up and having core guys that came up together makes that organization be what they are.
Yeah, you guys were talking earlier about the Dodgers and how good they are and what they've done this year, and about, okay, can you name one homegrown guy? Maybe Will Smith, the catcher. Who knows? I mean, there might be others.
Muncy.
Maybe some pitchers. But you look back then, and you say the core four, and I got to add Bernie Williams to that because he was such a huge component. And
Hall of Famer or not, Nelly? Hall of Famer or not?
I mean, he could. I think if you look at the core four, I think if you look at Jorge Posada and the numbers that he has put up compared to some of the catchers that are in the Hall of Fame, I think he probably deserves it. I think Bernie could be a real question mark as far as on that fence, and really surprised that he didn't last too long on the ballot. You have Andy Pettit. What he's done now that you have the HGH and all the controversy with his name. Guys sometimes aren't going to get in. They're going to have. I mean, there's guys in the Hall of Fame that have done steroids and HGH. So, let's get over it. You either add them or you don't. But yeah, Roger Clemens belongs. You look at Barry Bonds belongs. I mean, these guys are freaking. HGH and steroids are not making you a better player. They're players for the reason. They're superstars for a reason. And I understand why everybody takes offense and whatever as far as they tested positive. But as far as you go back, Joba and you guys, you go back to when I played and how the development and the money, and money's a big part of what happens today. You develop minor league players, and when you went through the minor league system, it was all about winning. It wasn't. They developed you as a player, but they developed you as a winner. And the Yankees, and I never understood it because I came from the Mariner organization, and I hated the Yankees. I hated them when I grew up in Baltimore. I hated them.
Me too.
Then,
me too.
and I hated them when I played until I went over to and got traded to the Yankees.
Jeff, I did like you. I don't know about now.
It's the Yankee way, Jeff. It's the Yankee way.
Yeah, it is. You're absolutely right. I mean, and it was instilled in you, and Steinbrenner instilled in everyone. This is how we do things. It's about winning. It's about you go through the minor league system and you develop as a player, but you develop as a winner. And most organizations.
And you still don't have a beard, Nelly. You still don't have a beard.
No, I know.
Job will loan you some hair.
I remember we had to wear black cleats. My pants had to be high, clean shaven, no necklace.
You had to show some color. Yeah.
No anything. Hair couldn't be long. Not that I had a long hair, but then I got traded to Cleveland later on, and it was just a completely different culture. It was like more so be yourself type of thing, which was fine. Which but winning at the lower levels mattered, but it wasn't the end all be all. Where in the Yankee system, that's what it was. And that's where I truly learned, like, all right, this is the Yankee way. And
you look at things have changed over the years, and whether they're good or whether they're bad. I mean, I can go back and even players before I played, you can go back and say, oh, and to get to the big leagues, you had to have an ERA under 3, or you had to have a batting average of 270. You weren't making it. Now money drives that, and you look at how organizations develop players. You look at the top 10 draft picks now, and that's how they develop players, because those are the ones that are getting money. Those are the ones that are going to be forced to the big leagues. That was never That never happened. Used to happen. I mean, if you were a number 1 pick, or you were back then, a 30 pick, you had just as much chance to make the big leagues as that number 1 pick, and the money wasn't there then. Now the money is there then. So as far as developing players, pitchers, it's all about velocity. It's not about
ability,
movement or ability. Hitters is like, how many home runs did they hit? It's just a different game. And is it better? I'm an old school guy, so I probably say no. I respected the 09 team when I respected what Joba did back in the day. And you just look how baseball is going forward and all the rule changes. And, and how they develop and how players and Job. This would be interesting. I have a question for you. I'm a broadcaster now with the Yes Network and the Marlins, and I'm seeing more injuries now than I've ever seen. And you see players, and I talk to players nowadays and how much they do after the game, after the season ends, and how they just do not rest. And I think that plays a big part of injury. What did you do after the season? How much did you let your body just say, okay, I've had enough and I'll pick up a ball whenever? For us, when we played to October, we did nothing for 2 months. November, December, zero. January is when the first time we picked up a ball, never threw off a mound at all until we got to spring training.
It was New Year's basic. It kind of depending on when and how far we went, honestly. Like there were certain years like '08 was a little different because that was obviously the last year of the old stadium and we didn't make it. So I was done in October. So I started right before Christmas because it was like I basically gave myself almost 2 months. And
Right.
so my whole demeanor was like 2 months. And it's a struggle for me now as a father. My son is 19 years old and a pitcher in college. And they don't take breaks. And you and I and Goody, sometimes less is more. And these kids
Right.
don't understand that. And what's the frustrating part about it is, as being a father and wanting to tell them that, I'm not your coach.
Right.
But now they're telling you, hey, you need to do this weighted program. You need to do this. You need to do that. And it's not ever like, hey, take a freaking 3 weeks and go hang out with your buddies, go relax, go hang out. Because I would be, and you know this as well as I do, when you would get a kid with, get called up a September call up and he's running sprints and stuff. We've been going for 10 months, dog. Stop.
Yeah.
Like we have beat ourselves up for so long. And I think it's completely, I think it's overkill. And Goody and we had this conversation on his segment on Monday where it's why injuries are becoming more prevalent early in spring training is because their workload never stops.
Right.
It never stops. Less is more sometimes. And these
There
kids
was
don't
more.
understand their bodies, though.
Yeah. There was more Tommy Johns in 2023 than there was in the whole 1990 era. And a lot of it's different. You sit there and broadcasting, I'm involved with some of the Players Association, and there's a lot going on as far as some of the reason why. Because the agents has gotten involved in a lot of it. Uh, you know, Players 20 years ago, and it may be job that you were part of that. Guys played through things. You never had an MRI if your elbow felt sore, your shoulder felt sore, if your knee felt sore. You just played through things,
I
and you
never
say,
wanted
okay,
one.
hey,
I never wanted
right,
one, but you knew Stevie and Gino. They would make sure your
yeah,
ass got one.
Yeah.
yeah, and now it's all about, and when back when it was a DL, not the IL, it was frowned upon to go on the IL, because that was part of your pay. If you went on the IL, then you were like, oh, this guy's an injured player. He's had some problems during the season. So guys played through things. Now the IL is looked at as, hey, this is a vacation. Let's we don't have to worry about how that's going to affect our contract. And agents get involved and say, hey, if you feel anything, just say, hey, I'm not going to, I can't pitch through this or I can't play through this. And they immediately go on the 15-day IL or the
Protects your
10-day
service
IL.
time. Yeah.
Right, because it doesn't affect their contract because they're going to still get paid at the end. And nowadays, I read an article last year about Tommy John that because of the agents, because how things are now with MRIs, that maybe 20 years ago, when you see a little tiny like tear or a little fray in the ulnar collateral nerve, oh, you pitch through it or you rehab to it. Now they're like, oh, Tommy John, Tommy, just get it. You're fine. You're out for a year. It's not going to affect your contract going forward. So a lot of the injuries are that way, and like Jabba said, guys don't stop. And you look at the Yankees now and the injuries. You look at Stanton. Who knows what the hell he's got going on? I mean, two bicep tendon. How's that happen? And now you have Clark Smith. That's I have an angry back. it's like, when is enough enough, and how do you get around these injuries? And a lot of it starts when you have a 19-year-old. I've been involved in youth baseball when I work with MLB.com for years, and I've seen these guys. They play games. The summer baseball is almost as much as a major league schedule, and they're 11 and 12, 13 and 14 years old. It's like, okay, when's it stop?
Sometimes more though, because
Yeah,
at least we get a break. Now these kids, now like my son getting into college and do not like. There were times where they're like, "Oh, we want him to go to Florida. We want him to do this." And I'm just like, and it's year round where they're doing
yeah,
everything like where they never like. I want like I honestly, now my son's going to college to play baseball, I miss the fact that he's playing high school basketball. I loved watching him
yeah,
play basketball because he got away from the game of baseball. And what basketball did, it made him a better athlete. Like you look at an article from 2 or 3 years ago with Christian
yeah.
McCaffrey, he goes, "The only reason why I'm a great football player is because I played basketball and I ran track."
And multi-sport athletes, yeah.
Now you
Yeah,
have
I can't
this.
imagine, John. I imagine you being a major league dad and having a son. I have 4 daughters, so thank God.
Oh no,
Being a
not
major,
God bless your soul,
yeah,
because
Yeah,
I only
yeah.
have to worry
Hey,
about one. You got to worry about
being
all of
yeah,
them.
being a
I,
major league dad and and watching the BS that goes involved in youth sports and college sports when you have played and pitched at the highest level. And these people don't understand that little over 23,000 baseball players ever, since the 1800s, have ever set a one day in the big leagues. And you've done it for a number of years, and that doesn't matter.
But think about us,
you're
Nelly.
you're not qualified to coach. I'll tell you
Right,
that.
exactly.
I
Yeah,
I applied to a few teams this year, and I was like, I have 30 years in this game. How am I not
yeah,
qualified to coach? You
yeah,
know.
exactly.
But think
It's
about that, Nelly.
crazy.
You spent
So now
50.
I'm gonna do I'm gonna be an analyst. So
Yeah,
now I
Yeah.
can just talk some shit on it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think you're better
Yeah.
off. Trust me.
you were 15 years, Nelly, right? 15,
Yeah.
and I was 11. And think about us in the 10 plus range of the 26,000 that have played. That 10 plus is way smaller, and
Yeah.
the things that like, and I don't care the years or whatever the experience doesn't like. We're not the end all the meets all. I tell my son all the
Right.
time, and all these parents are like, "Hey, I had one parent come to me, and this is an absolute blew my mind. So what are you doing to get my son to the next level?" And I'm like, "I'm just trying to help your son."
Right.
What do you mean next level? Like, are we talking about like, well, I want him to be in the big leagues because you played it. Well, no,
Yeah.
I don't. I don't have that answer. Don't.
Yeah.
And what? But what do you think, Nelly, from the playing side now that you've gone onto the other, and I'm kind of on the other side in a different realm because I don't. I've done some MLB Network stuff and whatever, but how do you feel like it's different from now that you're actually reporting it from like the Yes Network as a conglomerate instead of just you being like your whole full entity of how you feel?
Yeah, because now, I mean, analytics drive me crazy. I think for the most part, I could probably contradict anything any analytical person could say, and I do when I travel, and most of the things that I do, it's on the road. So I talk. I mean, I'm very interested in analytics, and I want to know what part do they play in the game. And I think some of it is really good. We never had those kind of numbers when I played. I don't know what I would do with them if I had them. Um, I sit there and I watch the game, and I just don't understand the way guys pitch. Everything's computerized. Everything's very robotic. I think the feel of the game is lost. Um, I look at everything's about. I mean, the velocity now. Hopefully everybody realizes that nobody's throwing 100 miles an hour. It's not what it when they throw 100 miles an hour. It's not what it is when it crosses the plate. I don't know why they
speed,
all of a sudden,
velocity.
yeah. So, and they measure it out of the hands instead of when it crosses, and that's just what the way it is. Um, and to me, I'm a mechanical guy. I'm 6'6", so I really had to know my mechanics. And for bigger guys, it's very hard to repeat your mechanics. I had a high leg kick when I played. And to be able to stay over the rubber, I'm a big mechanical guy. And whatever happens or what goes wrong at the plate, well, that starts at the rubber. Everything is like, oh, what's my spin rate? Or hey, did I get it off my fingertips? Or what's my vertical rise? Oh, my spin rate's not there, or my vertical rise is not there, and I wonder why. I go to spring training and I see these stations where they have these mounds where guys are throwing,
with the
and a lot of
Ripsato and all that stuff.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and there's
Photo and
no
the
pitching
TrackMan.
coaches, and it's all about, hey, I throw my pitch and I go immediately back to the iPad or the computer, and I want to know my spin rate, or I want to know my vertical rise or vertical break.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can immediately watch you and sit there and say, okay, you just hung and got underneath that slider, but you want to go back and watch your spin rate. But that's not effective. I mean, how about knowing what goes on the rubber, whether stay back, how to break your hands, what you need to do on the rubber to be able to get that spin rate, be able to get that vertical break, be able to throw strikes where you want it. Nobody knows how to do that anymore. The mechanical part of the game is kind of lost. Everything wants to know what happens around the plate and what pitches do. But they don't realize when they're not happening and things go wrong at the plate, it starts on the rubber. And not many people know about mechanics and know about how to fix things. I look at these Yankee pitchers, and whenever things go wrong, I know exactly what they do on the mound and why that's not happening across the plate.
We are talking to former Mariners, Yankees, Rangers, and White Sox relief pitcher Jeff Nelson. If you guys are listening to us on the audio side, which I'm sure a lot of people are, we are talking to Jeff Nelson.
Jeff, I played, was drafted by the Yankees twice. Came up with them in 15 and 16. I definitely had met you either somewhere in New York or at a spring training for sure. I I went back and signed back with the Yankees in 21, and that's when they really started. It was really taboo when I was there in 12 through 16 to really throw weighted balls. They were kind of behind the times where Trevor Bauer was sort of pushing that
Right.
weighted ball stuff and really getting into analytics with Driveline. Then when I signed back in 21, they were heavy. They had the whole gas station out. I'm sure you've been to
Yeah.
spring training. You've seen
Yeah.
it out there. They
Yeah.
have all the thing. Well, I ran into Sam Breen, and Sam Breen is the director of pitching with the Yankees, extremely intelligent guy from Driveline. Helped me out a lot on some of the stuff because I wasn't really a big analytical guy until that year.
Right.
And then that's when I started learning, okay, this is how, this is how we need to move down the mound biomechanically. They also have some force plates down there in Tampa where you put all the little balls all over you, and they show you how you move and how efficient you are throughout your delivery, which I thought was really cool. But I will say that year was probably one of the best years, like the most fun years I've had playing. I
Yeah.
mean, I spent pretty much the whole year in AAA. But the emphasis on winning took a back seat to the emphasis on stuff. And
Yeah.
so guys would go out, they would pitch an inning or not even get through an inning, give up 3 runs, 30 pitches, they get yanked. And then the next day they come in, what was my vert? And I'm sitting there, I'm the older guy,
Right.
like what I'm like, who cares what it was? You didn't even get anybody out. You threw 35 pitches and we blew through 3 guys. So I can understand your frustration there. I definitely think there's a place for analytics, like you said. I don't think it's the end all be all, but I think guys like yourself and former players who can learn the analytics, internalize it, and then be able to spew that out to players in a way that's digestible will give them a chance to not only hear some of the old school, I guess, frame of mind, the way that we think, mindset, and sprinkle in a little bit of analytics to where they can kind of blend it as their own. Because like you said, a
Here.
lot of guys nowadays will
Yeah.
have a toenail and be like, DL, or IL?
Yeah. So here's a good question for you, because I think that's great, and I would have loved that when I played. And as far as learning how to throw hard, if somebody came to me and say, "Hey, this is how we can add 2 or 3 miles an hour in your fastball," hell, I probably would have jumped all over it. We didn't have that. But you talked about you put the dots all over you, and they want to go over all your mechanics, and it's a one-time deal, or it's a spring training deal. I don't know if you had that ability during the regular season to go back. So I mean, you guys have played at the big league level, and you have 162 games.
Yeah.
As a pitcher, if you're a reliever, you're throwing 60, 65 games, starter 30 games, or now you're not going to have 60, 65 perfect games. Something's going to happen that you struggle, and mentally, it's a big freaking mental block. Mechanically, most of the times that's where you struggle. If something goes wrong with you, if you're struggling, it's mental, but it also is mechanical.
Mm-hmm.
So when you struggled as a player, did people know how to get you out of that? They didn't throw the dots on your head and say, hey, hey, this is what you're doing wrong. How many times did they go back and say, hey, oh, your spin rate's not here, or your vertical break is not here, or what, you're not getting that release point out on your fingertip?
The force plates and the dots and the biometric scan that they did was a baseline at the end of the year. So they took that from they I went down to Tampa, put all that stuff on, threw in my sliders at the end of the year. And actually I didn't ever even use that because in 22 I was playing in Mexico. But they have that information there. What they did was when guys spin rates were low, or their vertical break on their fastball, their horizontal break on their on their sinker, whatever, or sweeper, whatever, wasn't.
That's a made up pitch, by the way.
Wasn't. Yeah, that's what they call it now. It's slider, but that's whatever.
Fork.
If it wasn't to what you were, like your baseline was, then they go back and they start digging into like your video. And now every stadium, at least in AAA, at least the good stadiums in the they all have the high tech cameras and everything that are on you at all times, so they can watch you throughout your mechanics and your delivery, and they can break it down frame by frame and say, we think you're doing this, we think you're doing that. So then the next day you show up for early work. If you didn't have pitch 40 pitches the night before, you show up for early work, and then they'll walk you through the process on what we think you should do. That was my experience in New York.
So they have basically video guys. So they're telling you, say, if you have a couple bad games in a row and your mechanics are on, or whatever is happening, they'll go back on a video and they'll show you, hey, this is what we think you should do. This is what happened. But there's nobody physically that can go out there and say, when you're on a rubber and showing you physically, everything has to be learned on a iPad.
Well, I think in the moment the pitching coach would go out there and say something to you, but it's maybe they notice if it's glaring, like if you're dropping your arm or whatever.
Right.
Obviously, you're
No,
fatigued.
Goody, I agree with you. But Nelly, you think about this. Do you think it's paralysis by analysis? Because there's
for sure,
so much information
100%,
where it becomes like you pitched to a 3-4 year entire career. You had a strikeout and a half, basically. Like,
you're a dog, dude.
You think in your like, we don't teach certain things. That's just what works for me. Like, if my spin rate's not, but if I'm getting outs, are you still going to be pissed at me because I'm not getting outs?
Oh, absolutely not. But the thing of it is that if you're not getting outs, so I want to know why you're not getting them. If you're not, but you know what? I had a pitching coach just recently passed away, Bobby Cuellar, and with you, Jabba, if I was with you and you were getting outs, no matter if you had positive outings or negative outings, I'd always go up to you and say, hey, you're getting outs, but you know what? You're leaving the ball up. You're not getting extended. You're not staying back. Everything you're doing is up in the zone or whatever it is. I would help you out in that way. Um, Nowadays, if everybody's getting outs, then it's just hey, great. If you're not, then we got to figure out why you're not getting outs. I think pitching coaches nowadays, you don't see a lot of big league coaches now in on teams. And I think Matt Blake's a great guy. I think what he does is tremendous. I don't think he's a mechanical guy. when I do a broadcast, I'm very mechanical, so I know exactly what Carlos Rodon is doing on the mound, or what Garrett Cole's doing on the mound. I know exactly what he's doing, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, that when you don't even have to know where the ball goes, you just watch their mechanics and how they release it, if it's going to be a ball or if it's going to be an effective pitch. That's what I feel that my specialty is, because I always had to know my mechanics, and I think mechanics is such a huge part, and then you can incorporate the release point, then you incorporate the spin rate and the vertical drop, and all this other stuff, and that it's so important, and I wish they would get back to that. Also, I wish they would get back to setting up hitters and reading swings, which they haven't. I mean, that's another freaking conversation.
I want to quickly ask about a guy that we had on the show a couple months ago. He was actually at the Yankee playoff game, and it was Jim Leyritz, who was, I believe, your catcher for a little while when you were with the Yankees. You have a good story of him.
Do I have a good story from him? Oh my goodness.
He's like
one that you can tell, Nelly.
Yeah. A plain story may not be.
You know what? It was funny. I loved playing with Jimmy. I mean, he was a guy that was, didn't lack in confidence. He just loved the moment. And you take Jorge Posada and Joe Girardi, who are my two catchers. I love pitching to both of them. Jim Leyritz was a really good catcher, and he caught Andy Pettitte almost every single start. And that's pretty special when you have a guy that had those kind of numbers. He always came through in the moment. I love the guy as a teammate. All the stories that I have are probably off the field. So I mean, we didn't have camera phones back then, so it was.
Don't worry, Jeff.
It was
we
good.
won't tell Jim, because I have a good relationship with Jim Leyritz.
This is a G story. So we were in Kansas City. We were in Kansas City, and we played the first 3 days. We had a 4-game series, and we're in Kansas City, and it was in the middle of summer, so it's hot as hell. And I pitched the first 3 days, and Leyritz, I think, caught Pettitte one of the 3 days. So it was I think a Saturday night. So it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday night we go and we stay at the Plaza, and Kevin Nealon was playing at the he was doing a comedy show. Leyritz was friends with Kevin Nealon, so we went out, and I pitched 3 days in a row. I'm probably not going to pitch 4 days. Leyritz is not probably going to catch the 4th day. He wasn't. He only catches Pettitte. So we go out and we stay out till probably 3 or 4 in the morning. We sit there with Kevin Nealon. We're having beers and we're drinking after his show. We come in on Sunday. It was a getaway day, and sure enough, Leyritz is in. It was like probably 100 degrees. Leyritz is in the lineup. I wind up pitching the freaking 8th inning, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. 4 days in a row. We're out till 4 in the morning, and you know what? You wind up freaking strapping it on and
strapping it on.
That's a G. Hey. It's a G story. It wasn't.
That's Joba's
favorite word. They don't make them like they used to, Nelly. They don't make them like that.
That's
back-to-back days. You ain't throwing 3 days nowadays.
That's Joba's favorite line. Strap it on, man. That's his favorite line.
That was 4 days. I pitched 3 and then 4. That's happened before. That you think, okay, I'm not pitching the 4th day. Somehow the freaking manager, Joe Torre, had to figure out that we were out till 4 in the morning.
Jeff,
he said, "You're pitching."
Jeff, before we let you go, okay? Me and Joba have been going back and forth about this, and he's adamant that I can't.
Joba should have been a starter. They shouldn't have fucked with. Oh, excuse me. They
no
shouldn't
have.
I would have started Joba, no doubt, if I was a pitcher.
So here's the thing. Joba is getting old, and he thinks because I'm 4 years older than him that I don't have the athletic ability to steal against him. Now, we have this bet, and I'm still adamant that if I have 5 chances to steal against him, I'm stealing against him. So he keeps telling me, well, it's got to be, you have to have a semi-pro catcher and a guy that can catch a second base. I told him, you can get whoever you want behind the plate, except there's 2 guys I won't. There's no way he gets Molina because I'm not stealing against Molina, or Pudge Rodriguez. But whoever else he wants to get, as long as they're not playing in the major leagues right now, I'll be fine.
All right, Jim Lawrence it is.
You can get Jim Lawrence, whatever. Old man Jimmy. I don't care. Jimmy, if you're hearing it, you know I'm kidding around with you. And maybe I'm not. But I already told him, 5 chances, I'm stealing at least one time. And I don't want to hear any excuses when I do it. What do you think?
I'm just wondering how you're getting on first off the job.
Well, hold on 1 second. It's not about hit. We didn't say we're hitting. I start at first base, and I got to steal against him.
He's a ghost runner.
Yeah, I'm a ghost runner. I have to steal against him. I said I could steal against him. So that's the bet over here. 5 chances. I steal 1 against him. He tells me not a chance in hell. All right. So I said, let's make a bet. So that's the bet. What do you think about that, buddy?
All right. So have you played
I
baseball
played baseball.
before,
Yes, I did. I played high school ball. I was a pretty good baseball player, and I actually was a base stealer. So I'm actually pretty good. But, hey, Joba thinks, well, I wasn't in the big leagues, so I can't do it. And I was a pretty good hockey player, too. I was actually really, really good. But
that has nothing to do with it.
I'm just saying, I'm an athlete. I'm telling him I'm an athlete. I have the 200-meter record, 20 seconds flat. I can run. I can run. You say here you go.
You're the high school.
Whatever.
Great.
Jobber, you can say whatever you want. When I steal a base against you, you're
yeah.
going to be eating chalk, baby. You're going to be eating chalk. That's all I'm going to say.
Joba did have a high leg kick, so he did.
Get him.
He also, I think there may be a chance, maybe. But that's saying I don't think. I mean, if you start on first, but you're not getting to first, if you have to start from home plate off the top, that's for 1.
All right, I didn't say I can. I didn't say right now I can hit against.
If you have 5 chances, I mean, blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Listen, there's no blind squirrel in these nuts, my friend. I've got 2 of them, and they're pretty damn big. All right? So, Jeff, these nuts are going to find a way to second base.
You have no shot at it. You look like a little short, scrappy.
Hold on a second. I don't have elephantitis. I mean,
get him, baby. Get him.
I could draw, man.
The chair that you're sitting in is a really big chair.
Thank you. I listen.
It could look very small if Joba was sitting in it.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Joba's a little out of shape. I don't know, man. I don't know if he can get the ball. I don't even know if he can get the ball over the plate.
This is it, man. Jeff, I want to pick your brain at some point on the Yes Network. I talked to Todd Frazier today. He's scheduled to do some games this year.
Oh, good.
Also, keep in contact with Sweeney Murdy as well.
Oh, nice,
nice. How do you guys get all this stuff and get anything?
All right.
Dude,
well,
I have been beating down doors, dude.
We got Jeff beating Mr. He likes to beat down doors.
I've been beating down doors,
and he likes to beat other things, but we're not going to say that on radio, all right?
Oh, Lord.
Anyways, Jeff, we really appreciate the time. It was great content.
We'll definitely
get you on the show again. And maybe we'll go offset and have a little bit of fun with you. But they wanted to get calculate, and they wanted to make sure they were using baseball knowledge for this take. But I let them.
You guys do like an X version, or is everything like PG?
Listen,
no.
Listen, we're like PG-13, half rated R. But we like to have fun.
Errol's definitely rated R.
Let it
no,
fly,
I'm rated X.
No, I get in trouble. But hey, great. You know what? So great to talk to you. I'm glad it worked out.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nelly.
All right, take care, guys. Thanks for having me. You guys are awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Jeff Nelson, ladies and gentlemen.